Really cool is that the scene in itself has 3 acts. The first act has about 8 Smiths versus Neo. The second act is up around 25, and then the third act is up to 80 Smiths in the park at once. Along the way, we start with stunt doubles and somewhat conservative Hong Kong style block-offs and quick cuts everywhere. Then as we get to the second act, where there's 25 men, there'll be like a mixture of CG Smiths and head replacements and doubles going on all at the same time. In the third act, where there's up to 80 men, this will be all virtual, all computer graphics, including Neo. Percentage of capture plus animation extensions, and some was just pure animation. We've been running universal capture tests to create the synthetic face and form of Keanu for the last month and a half. Our big goal is by October, November to start having a representation of all these pieces in a virtual environment. These dudes obviously are Wu Ping's mind-blowing martial arts team. They're wearing all these highly reflective balls, and these balls are being read by these cameras up here in a procedure known as motion capture. 120 times a second they are flashing light. It looks like they're constant, but they're not. They're really strobing. And the balls, being super reflective, kick back every time they're being flashed. And we take the data and we begin to calculate where all of the little markers on their bodies are. We have taken the motion of one of the best martial artists in the world, and we have put it inside the form of Neo. So now we have a very capable Keanu Reeves kicking the living shit out of many dudes at once. Everything in the frame is 100% computer generated, the background, all the characters. Our methods completely surround three-dimensionally recording performance and then editing a lot of performances together into a longer performance. All we're really after is extending very difficult actions and viewing that from any angle in a way that just keeps the camera running longer instead of all these brief little cuts.
Painting and texture and detail and variation and Owen had put in there, bring it into the digital world, create these completely virtual camera moves that you never even think that wasn't real, because it was sourced from the real set.
It is definitely one of our favorite sets. We go above it, around it, and we travel a lot. It is definitely one of the sets that demanded the most work.
That we had to map Keanu's face or Hugo's face, and we had to do things with their bodies and their look that are not real.
So the challenge was, how do you generate synthetic humans? And we thought the hardest thing would be generating a human face that had the right expressions. So we built a system that we use multiple high-def cameras, use them to shoot an actor, and then we can reconstruct that actor's facial performance. Every little muscle movement, every mouth movement, eye movement, teeth movement, all of that can be reconstructed so that we can then fly around that with a virtual camera. So we can then stick that onto a live person's body or onto a synthetic body.
The problem with working on actual humans is they're so recognizable. You look at humans every day, you're very unforgiving when you see CG hair or a CG face or any of those things.
It would take an animator who was basically the Picasso of his time to actually completely freehand a performance like that.
We basically used those facial performances and we've assigned different performance on every Smith. So we had this whole process of assigning different performances to the different Smiths. So they all do different things.
one-time shot in the first movie was a little more practical. You know, the action was shot from a bunch of still cameras. We're sort of recreating, you know, Keanu and recreating Hugo so that we can basically put the camera anywhere and do anything. The idea was that the camera is always traveling at the same speed, it's just the motion is slowed down.
No frozen motion, that was the mid-90s. We wore different clothes back then.
It's sort of this blend between, you know, use mocap where the mocap works and where the mocap doesn't work, where it's just doing something that's just not capturable or just like superhuman, then that's where the hand animation has to pick up. Dynamic simulation is virtual crash test dummies that you can just smack around and they'll react similar to how a human would react if he was smacked by a bull. You can give it an animation and then hit it with a ball and it'll react to the ball but try and maintain the existing animation that you have on it. In this case, basically everyone who gets hit by a pole was a dynamic simulation. As the shots get more developed, we add more and more Smiths, and once the animation's final, it can get passed to the cloth department.
We worked very closely with modeling, with rigging, the animators, because we took inputs from all of those, and cloth was essentially sort of a hub.
All the clothing that you see is the way we actually get it to look so real is we get a cloth sample for each one of the characters, you know, whether it's a piece of the suit, a piece of Neo's coat, whatever, and we basically put it through this device that shoots it from many different angles, and it gives us an approximation of how a particular material reacts to light and different camera angles. Then we put that into the computer system and bingo, we get a realistic looking piece of cloth.
The brothers, they wanted to really have a lot of interaction with Neo's cassock, with his personality, or sort of have a connection with that. Once they were done with shooting, they cleaned them up and then they sent it to us so that we would be able to get a look and feel of the weight of it, as well as how it wrinkled and bent, and as well as try to...
Because it's a sphere and because it's chromed or mirrored, it actually reflects the entire environment. So by taking a picture of a chrome ball, you've actually taken a picture of effectively the entire environment. What it's letting us do in one image is measure the color of the environment as seen from any given point. We now have a record, a measurement of the light, of the color and the intensity of the light coming into the point where the chrome ball is.